To summarize some of the key points we've talked about when dealing with an Achilles tendinopathy is first, how long has this been going on for? If it's more acute in nature, maybe it's only lasted for a week and it recently started popping up, then simply pressing pause on some of the more dynamic activities and slowly ramping those things back up may be enough. However, if this has been going on for a long period of time and it's more chronic in nature, then simply pressing pause, doing some Achilles related programming, and then pressing resume again on your video, that's really not going to work for you. And we have to think about this in terms of making more subtle adjustments over a very long period of time, as it will take quite a long time for that tendon to remodel. However, that does not mean that you need to fully abandon loading it or participating in some level of activity, albeit with some modifications. Next, we want to consider, where am I getting my tendon pain? For example, sometimes you get tendon pain up here in the belly, and then other times you could be getting tendon pain down here towards the heel, or where the Achilles inserts on that heel bone, the calcaneus. If it's down here, then going into these deep ranges of dorsiflexion, where my ankle is folded up on itself, and doing these full range calf raises may be a lot more aggravating, and staying from this more flat ground position and up, adding a heel lift in your shoe during the day, and not wearing like minimalist shoes such as this, wearing shoes that have a little bit more cushion or a little bit more heel height, could be a huge advantage to you. However, if you're getting this tendon pain that's more up here in the mid belly, then going through a full range of motion isn't going to be as problematic. However, if it is, and you're getting some of those sliding feelings in the tendon where that full range of motion is more aggravating, then just starting with a heavy or isometric type protocol could be a huge advantage. It's also important to remember that when dealing with tendon pain, heavy, slow load is your friend, and that you shouldn't avoid heavy weights just because you have tendon pain. In fact, we know from good research that it's these heavier, slower loading on the tendon protocols that change the histology of the tendon and change the morphological properties of how it behaves. So while doing plyometrics is definitely something we want to get back to doing, and they are a ton of fun, it's not always the best starting point when dealing with a tendinopathy, because plyometrics are not the thing that builds a stiff tendon. They're how we use and coordinate the musculotendinous patterns. So when we do start getting into plyometrics, we start with very small amplitude hops and we really control the volume. And then we do things like starting to progress into more split stance, alternating split stance, and then you can start even going into some small elevation. It could be even as high as this, where I'm just working on that back leg, whether I get the foot off the ground and bounce, or if I stay more on the ground and do more of just these fast rebounds. And obviously this leg is low, so I can put a lot more load on it. The higher I get that surface and I start elevating up here, I'm going to have to put more load on that back leg. So we can start incorporating plyometrics in both the light and the deep tier that way, as well as if I wanted to do even more of a seated position, I can get down here and do more of these type of squats. I can even get into a crouched split position. I can switch, I can extend that. I don't want to get too much into these just at the beginning of a protocol, because I'm going to get a lot of stretch on that Achilles. Even if I'm in this kind of safe split squat position, it may be putting a lot of load. So I'm going to tend to start people a little bit more here and progress into a crouched and then into that full split squat type position. You can even elevate the back leg and get into that crouched position and work that deep tier in that kind of a way. So there's a lot of ways to come at this, but just know that as we get into plyometrics, we're controlling the dose, we're doing light and deep tier things, we're progressing from a double leg stance into split and then single leg stance, and there's all kinds of progressions that you can work through. But just know that you're doing this little increments at a time, that you don't need all of the plyometrics all at once, because again, we're playing the long game here, and it's going to take time for that tendon to change with the other parts of the protocol that you're doing. When it comes to running with an Achilles tendinopathy, we're probably going to be finding a lot of other ways to train your cardiovascular system and modifying the amount of volume that you're running, because the truth is, whether you run fast or slow or you modify cadence, with an Achilles tendinopathy, the Achilles is still getting more load every step you take, and things like footwear, surface, as well as your strike pattern of the foot are going to play a more significant role in the amount of load that you get. So running on a stiffer surface is a little bit better. Running with a heel or a mid-strike foot pattern will be better than a forefoot strike pattern if dealing with an Achilles tendinopathy in the short term. Things like running on a hill are not going to be very helpful. So choose the modality that works best for you, and then find a lot of other ways to keep your cardiovascular fitness high while waiting on your running volume to slowly and incrementally increase over time. Keep in mind that there's there's probably not one magic exercise or drill that you're missing, such as foot pronation or tibia rotation, that if you just did that thing, all of your Achilles problem would go away. It usually comes down to more load modification, waiting the correct amount of time, giving it the length of time under duress that it needs, and not just simply pressing pause, doing some drills to distract you in the meantime, starts to feel good, and then just resuming back where you left off. And while there is some nuance here dealing with the Achilles tendinopathy, a lot of that nuance has to do more about the person, their lifestyle, their goals, than it does about a specific foot position or a specific drill that they are or are not doing. So I hope that this summary gives you some guidance and a framework of mind of how to move forward when dealing with an Achilles tendinopathy. But as always, if you would like some specific help working through this process, that is what a coach is for, and that's what I'm here to do for you.